This video initially started out as me trying to figure out how to incorporate the false reap into my game. So I was studying people like Pato, Kieran Kichuk, and Eoghan O'Flanagan. And as I was studying them, I just couldn't help but think that there were so many skills that were required to be successful with this false reap. And I was noticing that some athletes were better at certain things than others. So I thought it would be a good idea to assemble all of these athletes together and talk about 5 skills that are essential to be good at leg locking and see what we can take away from studying all of these top level athletes. The first skill is grip fighting, and from the modern player's perspective, we cannot accept our opponent getting the underhook and flattening us out. And a lot of times our opponent will try and knock off our cross shoulder post and shoot in their underhook. But we need to make sure that our elbow stays in line with our rib cage. And this will make sure there's not any space for them to get that underhook. And I think Kieran does an amazing job grip fighting from bottom half guard. You can see as he's grip fighting, at no point does his elbow drift away from his rib cage. A lot of times that means reaching with the right wrist first and using that to hand off to his left hand. So a common grip fighting sequence he uses is he takes a collar tie, and then as his opponent clears that collar tie, he takes an initial grip with his right hand as he frees his left and then gets a 2-on-1 grip. If his opponent runs from this grip fighting exchange, Kieran loves the arm drag, and he uses it really well to counter this weave position that's commonly used when passing the guard. I think it does require a bit of flexibility, but Kieran does this all the time. He brings his knee to his chest to free his foot from that weave and set up the arm drag. Now, the second skill that's required to be good at leg locking and honestly just have a decent guard in general is the ability to off balance someone. And I think one of the best people to study at doing this is Gianni Grippo, because he uses De La Hiva and reverse De La Hiva really well to off balance his opponent and ultimately pummel 2 feet to the inside position. You can see here Gianni off balances his opponent to his left, and as his opponent is recovering, he switches his hand grips, takes his opponent to the right as he pummels in his second foot. Kieran also does a really good job at this, and he'll often use his hand to keep his opponent away. And as Kieran's pushing them back, if they decide to fall back on a leg lock of their own, he does a great job of making sure to stand up and put weight on that foot. He'll also do things like use his bottom leg to kick out the base of his opponent and then throw in his false reap. If that leg's too close and congested for Kieran to use his bottom leg, he'll often just grab it with his hand and use that to off balance his opponent. And Diego Pato used this exact same strategy to off balance his opponent to set up his false reap entry and ultimately get the finish. Now, Kieran's also really good at using knee levers to off-balance his opponent in the opposite direction. But the few times I've seen Kieran get in trouble is when his opponent's able to predict this knee lever coming and then shoot in on a body lock of their own. So just be careful of that. But one thing I think Kieran does better than anyone else is use the basic tripod sweep to off-balance or even knock down his opponent. And we'll use this to transition nicely into the third skill, which is seeing and entering into the leg positions.
I knocked them over. We're going to get that pressure. People get knocked to the butt, they rush you. So some of the best entries are just when we knock them over.
And Craig has shouted out Kieran and Diego Pato as people he has studied when developing his false reap. So I honestly wouldn't be surprised if he got this from them, because Kieran uses this all the time. He uses the tripod sweep to knock down his opponent, and as they recover, he throws in his false reap. And it doesn't even have to be you knocking them down. It can be anytime they're coming from bottom to top. You take that opportunity to throw in that false reap. And Diego Pato does that quite a bit. But again, I don't think anyone does it as proactive as Kieran, because he's often the one initiating it with that tripod sweep. He's really good at off-balancing his opponent, and as they recover, he uses that opportunity to throw in his false reap and get the entry. Now, sometimes if you're trying the false reap, it can be a bit difficult to complete it, especially if your opponent's keeping their foot heavy. And when this happens, you can try and use your second hand to just push their foot above your leg, which would allow you to complete the entry, or you can take this opportunity to switch to their second leg. Now, switching gears a little bit, we're going to talk about a different entry, which is this one here, and it's probably my favorite. And I'm not even really sure what you call it. It's kind of reverse X a little bit, but Eoghan O'Flanagan does this really well, where he'll off balance his opponent, pummel in his De La Hiva hook, but instead of going to single leg X, he'll backstep all the way to inside Senkaku. And you can see Gianni try to do this as well, where he off balances his opponent and pummels in his De La Hiva hook. Now, he would like to bring his leg all the way around and capture the other leg of his opponent, but they're kind of wise to it, so Gianni just accepts single leg X as his option and goes with that. And again, this is something Kieran's really good at as well. He'll pummel that foot in, start off balancing his opponent, and you can see him already reaching to secure that second leg. Now, you can see how smooth this looks when we put all 3 of these skills together. First, Kieran wins the grip fight and tries this arm drag. As his opponent is recovering, he is off balanced, and Kieran uses that to successfully use this entry into the legs. Now, the fourth skill is the ability to finish the heel hook. Now, Kieran has a few slick ways of doing this. He spins his head to the inside of his opponent's legs, which gives him immediate heel exposure when he completes the spin. And this is from 50-50, but he pairs it well with that inside spin. If he's not able to spin to the inside, Kieran goes belly down and spins kind of over his forehead. And I think this kind of caught Ethan Krelliston by surprise, but he was able to use his secondary foot to free himself from the heel hook. But the second time Kieran did it, he was able to capture Ethan's secondary leg on the roll, which delayed Ethan being able to use that secondary leg, and Kieran almost got the finish here. Now, from the standard inside Senkaku position, it's becoming less likely that we're going to be able to turn our opponent the direction in which we would be able to expose their heel. A lot of times they're going to be turning the correct way to hide their heel, and this has led to people going with that rotation and using it to separate the feet while being belly down in these backside situations. And oftentimes they use their head to keep their opponent's feet separated, which will allow them to get a good catch on the primary leg. Now, we just saw Oliver Taza and Nick Ronan do it there, but I think one of the best people at separating the feet and getting the finish is Jordan Hawley. As he's going belly down, he likes to use his non-heel hooking arm to hug his opponent's legs. And with his legs shackled together, his opponent has a hard time of preventing Jordan from uncrossing them and ultimately getting the finish. And you can see Jordan using that exact same strategy here. He hugs with the heel hooking arm initially, but only to pass it to his non-heel hooking arm. And then while he's belly down, he's untying his opponent's feet and going for the heel hook. Now, if this doesn't work and his opponent completes the roll, Jordan makes sure he keeps control of that secondary leg, and now his opponent has his legs crossed in a very dangerous situation. And in order to make it very difficult for his opponent to turn in the direction that would hide their heel, Jordan shoots his top leg through and back heels very aggressively, while he digs for the heel, gets a bite, and ultimately finishes the match. Now, the fifth and final skill I want to talk about is the ability to use leg locks to transition to other things. If we stay chasing a leg lock that's not there, it's often going to lead to more and more back exposure. So there are little tricky things we can do, like go for a K-guard entry, and as our opponent defends, we can shoot a triangle. But I think the person who has the best transitions off of leg attacks is Diego Pato. Look at the sequence here. Diego's on top, his opponent sweeps him and then shoots a triangle. Diego successfully defends the triangle and enters into the legs. He then switches legs and enters into K-guard. And as his opponent tries to smash him in K-guard, he transitions right to the back. I thought that the sequence was super smooth, and it's something that he often does. Now, another transition from him that I liked a lot is this one from outside Ashi, where he hooks his opponent's leg with his foot and then uses it to come around and take the back. Again, I think transitioning from leg entries into other forms of attack is a very critical skill to develop. Otherwise, people are going to take your back when your leg lock fails. If you made it this far, I really appreciate the support. Please remember to like, subscribe, check out our website if you're interested in discounted apparel, upcoming events, or any recommendations on books, podcasts, supplements, things like that. Be sure to leave a fist bump in the comments section, and we'll see you in the next video.